You know, something I don't think we talk about enough is toxic relationships. You hear it a lot from the girl's side, but you never hear it from the man's side. And no, I'm not about to tell you how I was a toxic person in a toxic relationship. You guys know that video I made like 3 months ago about how I finally have a girlfriend? Well, I no longer have said girlfriend. I'm kind of going to give you the whole rundown of it right now, but basically it was just pretty toxic the whole time. Our first month we started dating, it was really fun. We went on dates, had fun, had a great time. I saw nothing wrong with it. But then I found out something about her. When she got upset, she would go silent, and every single time I would try to communicate with her, she couldn't do it. That is one of the biggest things for me specifically in a relationship, is communication. I just need her to talk to me. I just need her to tell me that it was okay, that we'd be okay, and she couldn't even do that. And since she couldn't do that, this all led to me saying I wanted to break up with her. And this was a very hard decision to come to. I was intensely talking with my parents about this beforehand and all my friends. So I went through with it. And from there, it was a whole night of me crying until 2 a.m., her spam calling me picking up, and then the next morning, I woke up and decided to give her another chance. The reason I decided to give her another chance is because she promised me she would change. And I know for anyone listening, like, this could be like, oh, you only broke up with her because she didn't communicate. There were other things too, guys. But I'm not going to go into that detail right now because this is just about it being toxic. So please, just listen to the rest of the story. When we got into this relationship, communication was the one thing we said we were going to do. She would hang up on me on FaceTime if she ever got upset. She would stay silent for hours and not say a single word to me or even acknowledge my existence, and she wouldn't text me. So for that reason, I wanted to break up with her. She then promised me she wouldn't do it again, so I stayed with her. After this, it only went worse and worse from here. It started to feel like I was just out of the relationship, and as we kept going with it, looking back at it now, honestly, I think that's why what happens next happened. She told me she was suicidal, and this was so out of nowhere, I had no idea how to react. I didn't know what to do, so the only thing I could do was just cry. I literally cried into her arms, because I couldn't imagine if my girlfriend were to kill herself. That is something I could not physically imagine. Imagine your girlfriend killed herself and you were the only one who knew. It was so much of a burden for me at the time that I felt like I had to tell other people. But I didn't tell anyone because she told me not to, and she told me she'd be mad at me if she did. So anyway, we keep going, but things progressively got worse for her, and she kept saying all the time how depressed she was and how she wanted to kill herself. So I finally caved, and I told her friend. I reached out to one of her close friends on Instagram, and the reason I did this is because she put her whole life in my hands. I had a long talk with ChatGPT, my brother, and God himself about this, and I came to the conclusion that that's not fair to me. You can't put your life in somebody else's hands. You can't put your whole life in one person's hands. She is very loved by her friends and her family. So her putting her whole life in my hands was something I couldn't grasp. During this time, it all became too much, because it just turned into the constant silence that she would always give me. She was always upset about the littlest things. I couldn't deal with it anymore. Having that whole pressure of her life being in my hands was something that was so extreme, it was weighing on me mentally. I literally had a talk with my dad saying how mentally exhausted I was. But at the end of the day, I felt like I couldn't leave, because every time anything would happen, she would always tell me, "You're the only good thing in my life." So if I left, like, she would do it. That was my thoughts. If I left, she would actually end her own life. And I could not imagine the pain of that if that were to actually happen. This is a toxic relationship. This is manipulative, and this is mentally tormenting to your partner. The only one person that is solely responsible for your life is yourself. Putting your own life in somebody else's hands is extremely manipulative and way too much pressure for one person to handle. One of two things are going to happen. One, that person cannot give you enough of themselves, or two, that person is going to give you too much of themselves and lose themselves in the process. That meaning that you may have gotten better, but the person who gave you so much, their life has probably just gotten significantly worse. And that's what I did for a while. I was the one giving her so much more of me, even though it was so draining and I still had other things going on. Like, it got to the point where it felt like I wasn't even allowed to have my own life because I always needed to be involved in hers. It was only for that reason that I was scared she would end her life. I couldn't imagine that pain. I couldn't imagine saying, yeah, my ex-girlfriend killed herself, and I was the only one who knew. So it was around this time that I told her friends and I told her dad. When I told her dad, that is when it really was fully real. I went over to her house one day and I left and she was crying and upset. She normally walked me out the door. She did not walk me out the door. She went downstairs, went right back to her room crying. So I told her dad about it because I was sick and tired of it. That was manipulating me to stay in an abusive, toxic relationship. It felt like an immense amount of pressure. It literally felt like somebody saying, if you don't talk to me, and one day I will end my life. That is what it felt like. It felt like if I went even an hour without saying something to her, that she would end her life. And that was way too much for one person to handle. I think the part where it became super clear for me about that was when I finally called my brother and told him the whole situation. He was the one who kind of told me, that's way too much pressure for you. And he was right for the most part. And he was right. Like, yeah, that's a lot of pressure to put on one person. I know just hearing this, if it's never happened to you, it doesn't seem like that much. Like, yeah, just be there for that person. But I promise you, when you're put in this situation, your mental is only focused on one thing, and that is keeping another person alive. That is not your responsibility. You are only responsible for one person's life, that being your own life. Anyway, I say all this to say that it felt like I couldn't leave. She kept telling me I was the only thing she had in her life and that I was the only good thing in her life. So it felt like if I left her, she would genuinely end her life. And then thankfully, it finally came to a night where we were talking and she texted me something when I was driving home from her place. She texted me, hey, can I talk to you about something? I was like, okay, yeah, you can call me. I called her and she said, I'd rather text about it. I was like, okay, go for it. She told me to wait till I got home. I got home and I asked her. She then brought up, do you even want to be in this relationship with me? And I told her the truth. I told her, honestly, I want it to change. You said you'd stop going silent, and you never did stop it. She said, okay, let's just cut it off right here then. I was like, okay, if that's what you really want. And she snapped on me. She started cursing me out, calling me these horrible, horrible things. Basically telling me that I was the worst person alive, that I'm evil, that I'm cursed, that I should go to hell. All because I told her, if you want to break up, we can break up. And that turned into a whole 2 to 3 days of her begging me to stay. And that is as much as I realized, holy crap, that whole suicidal thing was straight up toxic the entire time. Never once when she was asking for me back in the final 2 to 3 days did she ever mention to me that she's depressed or suicidal. It's like that thought, that thing that was keeping me around so much, it's like she completely forgot about it. It's like her true colors finally came out in the end, where she actually wanted me. She actually wanted a relationship with me, not just the attention I was giving her. So in the end, she blamed me fully. And at that point, I realized that this was all toxic and it was never true. She was never depressed. She was never suicidal. She only said those things so I would stay around and give her more and more of my attention and energy. You guys may be sitting there thinking, is she alive right now? Yes, I can confirm she is alive. It's been about a little over a month since we fully broke up. She is alive. I've seen her post on her Instagram story, meaning she's alive. But it hit me about a week after we broke up. She would have said something in the final moments, but she never did. That is fully being toxic, putting her whole life into my hands just so I would stay. That is a toxic relationship, and that is something nobody deserves to go through. That amount of mental torment is something you can't imagine until you actually go through it. Imagine it's somebody you truly care about too. Somebody you imagined a future with prior, somebody who told you they'd change for you, somebody who you buy gifts for, who buys gifts for you. They tell you that they're suicidal, and then you learn that it was all a facade so you would stay around and pour more of yourself into them. In the final days, it felt like I was giving more of myself to her than me, and it felt like I was losing myself. Honestly, God really just came through for me in that moment. Whatever you believe in, if you believe in God or not, I think God came through for me in that final moment there. This is all to say, this is my experience with toxic relationships. It is horrible, and I strongly advise you guys, if anybody out there is listening to this and in a toxic relationship, please trust me. Get out of it as soon as you can in the best way you can. I know it seems impossible, I know it seems like there's no way out, but honestly, the only thing that's left to do is just leave. I make this video because I want to encourage people to get out of their toxic relationships, and also because I feel like people on YouTube don't tell you what a toxic relationship actually looks like. It looks like losing yourself in a relationship while the other person is staying afloat. That is what a toxic relationship becomes. You become the life vest for someone else, but what that means is they're drowning you while you are trying to give yourself to them. Because let me tell you the feeling afterwards. The feeling after getting out of a toxic relationship is completely unmatched. Normally, I cry over girls. A video on my channel from 8 months ago is talking about how I went on 2 dates with one girl, and I still think about her, guys. I literally think about her 8 months into the future. My point being in saying that, I normally get stuck on girls. But this being a toxic relationship, this was the longest relationship I've ever had of 3 months, and it was gone in the matter of 3 days. And just like that, all I felt was freedom. All I felt is pure relief in freedom, and I haven't looked back since. Everyone always asks me, how does it feel? It feels like freedom. It may feel like the hardest burden ever right now to stay in a toxic relationship, but think about it. When you get that chip off your shoulder, you're finally free, and it feels like such a good relief. Anyway, that's my encouragement for anyone out there going through a toxic relationship. If you guys are just watching this video to watch this video, I hope you got some entertainment out of it. Thank you guys for watching. Stay blessed. It shouldn't be too hard, and I'll see you in the next one.